What was Rogue Trader era scenery like? Let's find out. In the Warhammer 40,000 universe, battles and adventures take place on any one of over 1 million worlds, each with unique and unpredictable environments. In the Rogue Trader era, the field of battle was usually set up on a fairly large games table or area of floor, often measuring 6 by 4 feet, much like today, as larger games on tables were challenging to handle properly. Many gamers, including myself on occasion, improvised by using the dining room table. Once the area was clear, it was up to the games master or players to arrange the scenery. We never had a games master, so we usually just did it ourselves. My name's Marcel, and this is Snakeworks. So today we're having a little look at what scenery was like in the Rogue Trader and Oldhammer era of Warhammer, and what it was made with. Some of this stuff is rather amusing, but I think a lot of it has stood the test of time and is still rather useful today. Gamers might have seen elaborate setups from other players or special display games featured at hobby conventions like Games Day, or even in publications such as White Dwarf. The internet wasn't a thing at the time. These served as inspiration for creating an attractive and interesting game that would captivate both players and the games master. Providing rules for normal scenery like hills, rivers and woods was easy. When I say easy, I mean less complicated than the usual complicated stuff in the Rogue Trader rulebook. It must have actually been quite hard to get inspiration back then. Everything must have looked quite similar, especially with some of these interesting scenery pieces coming up. Hills were a common and highly advantageous scenic element in the gaming world, and they still are. Placing models on elevated terrain offers combat benefits, granting them the strategic edge by allowing them to see over the heads of troops positioned below. To create hills for the game's table, various materials like chipboard or polystyrene ceiling tiles could be cut to shape. Even stacks of books cleverly arranged could achieve the desired effect, usually with a sheet over them to finish the look. When constructing hills, it was considered crucial to design them in steps or tiers to provide stable platforms for the models to stand on. This ensured that the miniatures could be placed at different heights, enhancing the visual appeal and tactical aspects of the game. It also eliminates the threat of wobbly model syndrome. For those seeking convenience, several companies produced ready-made stepped hills specifically designed for wargames. These hills were crafted from polystyrene and featured a textured finish, resulting in a realistic appearance. A touch of flock sprinkled on the terrain could effectively hide any joints, further improving the overall aesthetic of the tabletop battlefield. Now, I seem to remember Games Workshop themselves sold the pre-made hills at some point, but I can't say I've seen them for sale anywhere lately. They must have been, the sort of mid-2000s, early 2000s perhaps? Maybe Woodland Scenics or someone like that makes them today. Do any of you guys know? Woods served as valuable terrain elements for strategic purposes, effectively blocking off areas due to their dense nature, making it challenging to move through or fire across them. Model trees were readily available at hobby shops, typically offered as plastic or even metal, yes metal, kits. For those seeking a more hands-on approach, crafting custom trees was an option. Pine cones, pipe cleaners and sponges could be creatively combined to create unique trees. To add an otherworldly touch, plastic aquarium plants proved to be excellent choices for alien-looking trees. and this method still exists to this day. Enhancing the woodland scene required attention to detail. Sprinkling the area generously with lichen and scenic flock brought forth the effect of lush undergrowth. This added depth and realism to the forest, making it visually appealing and heightening the immersive experience of the game. By incorporating woods and giving them an authentic touch, players could truly immerse themselves in the tactical challenges posed by the dense and mysterious woodland terrains. Now, for some reason, people back in the day would just sprinkle flock and lichen randomly around the table. They didn't even glue it on. I bet that must have been a right mess to clear up at the end of the day. You would have had to get your old dustbuster out and give that a damn good sucking. Back in the day, but not so much now, hedges had a vital role in providing soft cover, effectively shielding troops positioned behind them. These miniature hedge models could be conveniently acquired from local model shops, or for those with a creative flair, they could be homemade using materials like sponge or cut sections of a loofah. 10 internet cookies if you even know what a loofah is. An alternative approach involved representing hedges with a line of lichen, achieving a realistic visual effect. Was it just dumped on the table? Was it glued down? Nobody knows. For functional hedges, each section typically measured about an inch in width and had a length of around 4 inches. Smaller sections were less effective as they didn't offer substantial cover or act as proper barriers, as troops could easily manoeuvre around them. Players often combined 2 or more hedge sections to construct longer hedges or expansive field systems, adding both tactical depth and aesthetic appeal to the gaming environment. Strategically positioning these hedge sections allowed players to create advantageous cover points and obstacles, transforming the battlefield into a dynamic and engaging place for the games master and players alike. By utilising hedges as tactical elements, gamers could enhance their gaming experience and add an extra layer of immersion to the tabletop warfare. Now, I feel that hedges are more of a thing for your historical and fantasy games these days rather than Warhammer 40,000. I can't say I've ever seen a hedge on a Warhammer 40,000 table, but that is something we might need to change. Walls functioned similarly to hedges, offering valuable cover to troops positioned behind them, but with the distinction of providing hard cover. Plastic wall models were readily available at model shops, and for those seeking a DIY approach, crafting custom walls was an option. Materials such as card, plasticine or DAS could be employed to create personalised wall structures. The sturdiness of walls provided a stronger defence compared to hedges, making them ideal for shielding troops from enemy fire and attacks. Players had the flexibility to choose between pre-made plastic wall models or unleash their creativity by handcrafting walls using accessible materials. This allowed for customization and integration of the walls into various gaming scenarios. Whether players preferred the convenience of store-bought plastic walls or the satisfaction of crafting their own unique barriers, incorporating walls into the gaming landscape added tactical depth and created opportunities for thrilling encounters on the tabletop battlefield. The availability of both commercial options and the DIY alternatives offered gamers the freedom to curate their perfect wargaming experience with walls that suited their preferences and terrain requirements. So what the hell does a pre-made wall look like? Surely it's just a plastic rectangle with maybe an embossed, tiled or brick effect on there. I might have to look those up, you know. Ditches, much like walls, offered troops valuable hard cover when occupying them on the battlefield. These defensive positions provided a significant advantage, as it was assumed that the ditches were shallow enough to allow weapons to be fired without any hindrance. For attacking troops, the higher ground gave them an edge over their opponents. Representing ditches on the Wargames table presented a challenge, but there was an effective method to achieve the desired effect. To create ditches, one could cut strips of card, each measuring around 2 inches in width, into convenient lengths. Next, using plasticine or some other modelling putty, a slope could be built up on the front and rear of the ditch, leaving a 1-inch gap down the centre, forming the actual ditch itself. Although a little labour intensive, this technique allowed for the creation of realistic looking ditches that served as functional obstacles and tactical features on the gaming terrain. Players could now add depth and strategic complexity to their battles by incorporating ditches into the layout, ensuring an engaging and dynamic experience, again for both the games master and the players. The combination of different terrain, such as walls, hedges and ditches, offered a wealth of possibilities for wargaming scenarios, further enriching the games in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Now to me, these ditches just sound like trenches. The way they're sort of shallow enough to fire out of and lay in. It's a trench. Also, the idea of a trench makes sense in a Warhammer 40,000 setting. However, a ditch is quite amusing though. We used to have to jump over ditches quite a lot as children, but that's a story for another day. Debris and ruins add captivating elements to the gaming terrain, representing small sections of broken ground, ranging from old decaying buildings and crashed vehicles to spoil tips. For easy representation of debris on the Wargames table, players could scatter a few pieces of cork around the desired area, instantly creating a sense of destruction and chaos. This simple approach worked well for adding a touch of realism to the battlefield without much effort. More enthusiastic modelers and hobbyists could take on a more ambitious task and construct their own intricate ruins. Using materials like card, polystyrene or plasticard, they could craft detailed and custom ruins, lending an authentic look to the wreckage and destruction on the tabletop. This approach allowed for creative freedom and personalization, as players could design ruins that matched their vision for the battle-scarred landscape. The inclusion of debris and ruins not only enhanced the visual appeal of the gaming environment, but also provided strategic opportunities for players to use them as cover or obstacles during the gameplay. By incorporating these elements, the battlefield came alive with the remnants of past conflicts, enriching the narrative and making the gaming experience even more immersive and thrilling. I love that there's this massive range between just scattering bits of broken up cork around the table, willy-nilly, to spending hours on a huge scratch-built ruined building. It's brilliant, and that's just what the hobby is about. Doing what you want to do, when you want, how you want. Don't let anyone else dictate your hobby to you. If you want to put ditches and hedges on your 40k board, then do it. Buildings held significant strategic importance as crucial strongpoints, and they still do, of course, allowing troops to command sweeping arcs of fire across the battlefield. Players had the option to purchase pre-made buildings from model shops, or they could indulge in their creativity by crafting buildings from materials like polystyrene or plasticard. The old Citadel range of card buildings, specially designed for Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000, were highly recommended for their quality and thematic fit within the game's universe, although I myself have never seen them. For those with some modelling skills, the possibilities were even broader, as they could transform almost any food or cosmetic container into a convincing and unique building. The use of repurposed items added a personal touch and allowed players to customize their terrain to match their vision for the battlefield. Additionally, toy construction kits provided another valuable resource for imaginative gamers, as they could find and incorporate useful pieces into their gaming terrain. By utilizing a variety of building options, players could create diverse and visually captivating landscapes that enhanced the tactical challenges and immersion of the game. Whether choosing from pre-made offerings or diving into DIY projects, the availability of various building options contributed to the limitless potential of Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 battles. Now, don't forget the mention of food containers being used to make buildings in Warhammer 40,000. There's a few videos based on that I'm working on right now. But we need to eat the food out of the containers first. Rivers played a significant role in the gaming landscape, and while model river sections were available in shops, the most effective method to create realistic rivers involved cutting card strips to shape and fashioning riverbanks with plasticine. The ideal river size was around 12 inches long and between 3 and 5 inches wide. To maintain continuity and immersion, rivers needed to run from one table edge to another, avoiding abrupt endings. It was essential to remember that rivers didn't have to be depicted as conventional water. Imaginative players could unleash their creativity by envisioning alternative river scenarios, such as rivers of boiling lava, molten sulfur, or even liquid nitrogen under specific conditions. This colourful and dynamic spectacle added a unique and thrilling element to the gaming experience, infusing the tabletop battlefield with fantastical and imaginative elements. By incorporating rivers into the gaming terrain, players could open up strategic opportunities for crossing, cover, and potential hazards, adding depth and realism to their battles. The versatility in representing rivers allowed for an exciting and visually captivating portrayal of different environments within the Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 universe, immersing gamers in a world where the impossible can become possible. Now, interestingly, I've only ever seen water rivers and lava rivers. I do like the idea of these other types. Perhaps that's something else we can look at one day. Bridges and fords play essential roles on the battlefield, offering crucial crossing points for troops. A recommended width of 3 to 4 inches for bridges was suggested to avoid the feeling of being too cramped during gameplay. You heard the man, don't bunch up. Wider bridges allowed for more strategic manoeuvring and provided a more natural flow to the movement of troops. Players had the flexibility to choose between purchasing pre-made bridges from model shops or embarking on DIY projects using materials like plasticard, polystyrene, or wood. Homemade bridges provided an opportunity for customization, ensuring that the bridge design matched the overall theme of the gaming terrain. Fords, on the other hand, offered an alternative crossing point, indicated by a section of pale-coloured card without banks, depicting the shallow areas of the river. This simple representation added a tactical dimension, creating accessible points for troops to cross the river and interact with the terrain. By incorporating bridges and fords into the tabletop battlefield, gamers added complexity and opportunities for dynamic gameplay. These essential features enabled troop movement, influenced battle strategies, and further enriched the immersive experience. Whether crossing a bridge under enemy fire or wading through a ford to flank the opponent, the diverse terrain elements contributed to the excitement and challenge of each game. Now I want to know, why does it have to be fords and rivers? What about voxels and rivers? Or something nice like a Lamborghini or Ferrari and rivers? I'll get my coat. Pools served as both obstacles and potential refuges for aquatic creatures on the gaming table, adding an extra layer of depth to the terrain. Players had the creative freedom to craft pools from card, which could then be painted in various colours such as blue, green, red, or any shade that best represented the liquid they contained. These pools not only enhanced the visual appeal of the battlefield, but also influenced gameplay by creating unique tactical challenges and opportunities. Troops might need to navigate around or cross the pools, affecting their movement and positioning. Additionally, aquatic-themed scenarios could be devised, where creatures residing in the pools played a role in the narrative or objectives of the game. The versatility of pools allowed players to adapt their tabletop landscape to suit different environments within the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Whether it be crystal clear waters or mysterious alien fluids, or maybe even pools of bubbling magma. These features enriched the gaming experience. Now, pools and ponds were always very nice to look at when I was a lad. I think it was the clear water effect going on. It didn't really work so well when it was just a bit of blue paper or card cut into the shape of a pond. Looked like a kidney bean. Oh, sometimes with a couple of fish drawn in it. I think this is actually a fish, you know. Bogs represented ponds on the gaming table, but presented a moderate challenge to cross. These areas of the battlefield could be crafted from card and painted in dark green or other suitably disgusting colours, accurately representing the murky and hazardous nature of these boggy terrains. While bogs did not present insurmountable obstacles, crossing them required a bit of effort and caution from the troops. These areas could slow down movement and posed a potential risk of getting stuck, making them strategic considerations during gameplay. The presence of bogs added thematic depth to the battlefield, evoking images of treacherous landscapes where hidden dangers lurked. Incorporating bogs into the gaming terrain provided an opportunity for players to engage in tactical decision-making. Maneuvering around these challenging terrains or using them strategically as natural barriers became part of the gameplay dynamic. The versatility in crafting bogs allowed for customization and immersion in various scenarios, contributing to the immersive and engaging experience of Warhammer 40,000. Now in my head, a bog isn't much different from a pool, just different coloured water. However, I feel that you need more stuff in it to be a bog, like big plants or old broken machinery or something. A shopping trolley. There's always a shopping trolley in a toxic bog. Beer cans floating past. Where they come from, nobody has any idea, but I think it's international law to have a shopping trolley in a bog. If someone ever sees a bog without a shopping trolley in it, they'll go straight down to Tesco's and wheel that bastard to that bog. Stalagmites, tall and pointed formations rising from the ground, were fascinating features that added depth and realism to the gaming terrain. Whether they were true stalagmites formed by precipitation or merely unusual rock formations, it didn't matter for the purposes of the game. Gamers had the freedom to depict them in whichever way suited their narrative. To create stalagmites, various modelling materials could be employed, such as papier-mâché, clay, das, or milliput. For larger stalagmites, plaster of Paris provided a simple and cost-effective option. Buying a big bag of cheap plaster from a chemist, gamers could easily mould their stalagmites. This process involved taking a bucket filled with sand, creating a well-shaped hole in the sand to form the desired stalagmite shape, and then preparing and pouring the plaster into the hole. After allowing the plaster to set, the stalagmite could be removed from its mould. This method allowed for the creation of various intriguing rock formations without breaking the bank. To enhance the visual appeal, gamers could add a touch of powdered paint to dye the plaster or mix coloured sand or aquarium gravel to produce striking and unique effects. The versatility in crafting stalagmites offered endless possibilities, enriching the gaming experience of Warhammer 40,000. Now, to me, stalagmites are one of the key bits of scenery from the early Warhammer 40,000 era. You saw them in a lot of photos. Sometimes they looked more like rock that had been carved into spires, so maybe they weren't even stalactites at all. Or is it stalagmites? I always get them confused, you know. Now, talking of stalagmites, I show quite a few of them early on in the Rogue Trader rulebook here. If you have a look down here, it says, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, Ian. If you are enjoying the content here on the channel, then please consider joining the Patreon, the link to which is in the description below or up here somewhere. Rocks, being rocks, were simple yet essential elements on the gaming table, adding a realistic touch to the terrain. Players had a couple of options for obtaining rocks. They could collect rocks from their gardens or outdoor areas, providing a cost-effective and natural approach to rock scenery. Another option was to purchase glass fibre rocks from aquarium shops, which offered a ready-made and visually appealing solution. Additionally, the same plaster and sand casting method used for stalagmites could also be applied to create rocks. By using plaster and a sand mould, gamers could craft their own custom rocks of various shapes and sizes. This technique allowed for the production of realistic-looking rocks that blended seamlessly with the rest of the gaming terrain. The incorporation of rocks into the battlefield provided both aesthetic value and strategic opportunities. Troops could take cover behind the rocks or use them as vantage points during gameplay. The ease of obtaining or crafting rocks made them a versatile addition to the Warhammer 40,000 gaming experience. I love that old scenery. If you want to see some more Oldhammer themed videos, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Stag, yes,